Tonight, our talk is Matt Albright, and he's going to talk about .NET configurations and transforms. Matt, take it away.
Like Clayton said, my name is Matt Albright. Please don't call me Matthew. Matt or Madamus. Today we're going to be talking about .NET transforms and configurations and environmental overrides. Who here has actually done any building of their own apps locally? Yay, cool. How many people have actually used the .NET framework like 4.5, 4.6, 4.0? Sweet, cool. Then you guys are very familiar with, probably inadvertently or advertently familiar with some of the build time transforms, so that'll be easy. So some of my experience. Worked in release engineering, done a lot of DevOps stuff. DevOps kind of being a very ambiguous term these days. Worked as a developer predominantly for around 15 years. Been working in databases, done the build process, done the actual deployment platform thing, worked in the cloud engineering in Azure, a little bit in AWS and a little bit in OpenStack. And first and foremostly, I am a code craftsman, so I like to make sure my code is clean as possible, test it at the wazoo, and make sure that it's totally ready for production whenever it goes out the door. So, assumptions. Some things that I'm going to assume in the course of this presentation are that you have a CI pipeline. CI pipeline meaning something like Jenkins, or Octopus, or Bamboo, or VSTS. Insert whatever pipeline, insert whatever CI tool chain you want there. And other things to keep in mind is that transforms are not mutually exclusive. So it's very possible to have build time transforms and deploy time transforms and runtime transforms all working together. It all depends upon what you need. And that actually leads me to my next slide. Things to consider. What do you need to do? What do you need? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to transform? Is it sensitive information like connection strings that you don't necessarily want to have in source control? Is it something that you actually want to put into the hands of developers? Feature flags, true false Boolean overrides, homepage URLs, that type of thing. All of those things are things that you should probably want to consider before you decide what type of transform you actually want to handle. And of course, first and foremostly, tech stack, because there are some bits of .NET, there are some bits that are not necessarily available, because if you're talking about your full framework .NET, unless you're pulling in .NET Core libraries, you don't necessarily have the full extensibility of .NET Core inside of the full frameworks. So, like I kind of alluded to, types of configuration transforms. Build time. How many people want to guess exactly when this actually happens? Deploy time. Deploy time, this happens whenever you're actually doing that awesome MSDEPLOY step out to wherever the destination is. Whether that's test, UAT, some feature box, production, and then you can go ahead and insert whatever numbers based upon environment. So it could be F1, F2, QA1, whatever. That's your where it's the transforms actually occur whenever you're actually sending it out there. And then runtime transforms is while you're running it. They are transforms that you can actually run on the fly in your environments by updating a library, a Keyvault. Heaven forbid, even go ahead and updating the web config itself. Things that you can actually take care of while your application is running. So, build time transform tools. My personal favorite's MS Build, tested and true, comes with your Visual Studio. Sweet. There's also some third-party dependencies, Fast Koala, Slow Cheetah, that do something very, very similar. There are limitations there are some difficulties whenever you're doing MS Build in some cases, and some of the pros and cons. Moving on, build time transforms. There's like everything in life, there are pros and cons. And yes, I had to go ahead and put the Field of Dreams picture in there because if you build it, they will come. Wow, I can't believe I actually know that quote. So with build time transforms, you have pros and you have your cons. Pros are very, very powerful. You can test the environments from your local machine. I'll go ahead and skip ahead real quick. I kind of alluded to this portion. If you've worked with your full framework, you've probably seen these guys. Your web debug, your web release, production, UAT, whatever environment. you can actually change those. So whenever you're doing the building at the Visual Studios, you can actually change what environment you're building in. And it will take those with the web config there, and it will do a transform for you. So you will now be reading the values from that config file. So they are very, very powerful. They can allow you to go ahead and test the foreign environments without actually deploying anything. It puts the configurations totally in the hands of the developers, which is awesome because developers like that type of thing. We like power. We like to be able to know exactly what's going on. But like I said, with everything in life, there's some downsides too. There's lack of security. So that means potentially putting SQL Server connection strings for production inside of your web config and having it checked into source control. Also, like whenever you need to update something, whenever you need to update a connection string, you have to put that into your code, and then you have to do another build, and then you have to go ahead and take it through the entire deployment process. Also, another big one that I especially dislike that I've had to work with in the past is that each environment requires a new build. So you send it to test, and now you have your test package. So it's built for test. Awesome, passes test. Now you need to send it to production. Okay, it's got to be rebuilt again. So that nice little 3 to, in some cases, in some of our cases, 11 minutes build time has to be done for every single environment it's being deployed to. And like I showed you some of the examples of a little bit what I'm talking about with these different environmental build time transforms. Now we'll go ahead and move on to deploy time transform. I like that little red button. Just do, so simple, deploy. These are really, really cool because what you're doing is and I'll go ahead and show some examples in later slides, but literally what you're doing is you are having a separate file that's actually being compared to. Like you have your parameters file locally that's saying, here is in my config file, in my app config, in my web config, this is everything that I want, that I actually want to convert in whatever environment. Here is the path, and I've got some examples of that as well. And then you have your set params that say, okay, well, for X environment, I want this name that was actually set up in your previous one. I want the value to be this. And you can update that file, and whenever I say update, whenever you start adding some changes into it, like adding new parameters, it does require a new build. But if you're updating values like connection strings, like, okay, well, our third party just went ahead and is actually using a cluster now, so we need to change our connection strings. All you have to do is update the set parameters file, redeploy it, and your changes are there. It's awesome. You have your security of configurations. You have your automation of transforms. You can go ahead and store those in a separate place so that they're not necessarily a part of the build. You can still have them in your source control, but not everybody has access to it, only the people that need to. The downside to that is maintenance, is that, okay, well, this means that there is a new repo, there's a new other location that you're needing to update this information in. And something that I've learned is also turns into a bit of a black box because it's being handled in an automated fashion. There is that first thought of, what do I do? How do I update this? I need help. So with deploy time transforms, it usually requires a little bit of, hey, let me go ahead and help you understand this. So some of the deploy time transform tools, MSDEPLOY, Microsoft's solution for web apps and APIs. One of the downsides is like I alluded to before, sometimes it does have problems with app configs. It's great for web configs. For app configs, it's a hit or miss. 99% of the time miss. Some of the other ones that do work for it is like your slow qual and your fast GDA. Both of those work very, very well. I love those names too. I see the smiles. And they're real applications too. The real libraries that you would add into it. They are amazingly powerful. They are awesome, but they're a third-party dependency. So use them with a little bit of caution. There's also things you can go ahead and, like I was alluding to before, I've got Octopus deploy plugins. Octopus is one of those cool CI pipelines. So they actually have plugins that are actually able to handle these deploy time transforms to you. You essentially have to do the exact same thing though. You still have to have an external file that houses everything, and then one that actually points you to, points to a specific value inside of your config file. But you're going to run into that no matter what you do. Now, the flow of MSDEPLOY transforms for full framework.NET for XX, because this will work for 4.0, it'll work for 4.5, 4.5.2, 4.6, 4.6.2, and I experimented even 4.7. Awesome. Is you have your application, and then right next after the application, you have your parameters XML, which acts as a pointer. It literally says, hey, I am naming this parameter this, and this is the path inside of your config file that I'm going to be updating. And then you have your set parameters XML, which actually says, cool, using this parameter name, this is what my value is going to be for whatever environment. And here's an example of this, is that here's from config, add key, show test language, value true. Without any transforms, it's going to be true. This is exactly what it looks like inside of the parameters file, where you're saying, this is the name, app setting, show test language, default value is going to be false if this right here is not alluded to, it'll override this. Gotta get back on camera. Then you also have like your parameter entry kind. This is a web config, so all of this is going to be XML. The scope is your web config file, and then this right here I was alluding to, this is the path of it inside of your configuration, inside of your web config. And then of course the XML node ends. The next one down is that set param, that is the name that you created there, the name that you just created in your parameters XML file, and the value that you want it to be in whatever environment. Sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. And this probably is not going to help much. This is an example of MSDEPLOY. This is an example of something that we use where we are. I did kind of hide out some of the bits of information, but I did go ahead and put brackets around it. If you guys want an example of this, I am more than happy to provide this for you, because these are a pain in the butt to set up and figure out on your own. So this would be the package. This happens after build time, so you've already created your package.zip file that you're ready to deploy out to La La Land. Then you're going to go ahead and put in like where you're going to deploy it on the server, your computer name, your credentials, obviously, a whole bunch of like your authentication type, whatever. And then here's where you're actually going to put in your set param files. Where's your path to it? So whenever you're working in a CI pipeline, you pipe that into it, you make it verbose, and then you go ahead and just set up, here's the absolute path to your parameters XML file. So you've got your link between everything that you need. And then of course, you have your retry attempts.
Is that deployed in FTP URL?
Mm-hmm.
Get it deployed in FTP URL?
Yes,
so
sir.
you could actually use it to update an Azure app.
That we do that right now.
All right, cool.
You can do that for putting it onto a CD.
I just want to use big words. So.
Oh, cool! You did a great job. But yes, we are actually doing that for actually sending some of our older full framework applications out to Azure Web Apps.
Cool.
In fact, that's the exact example that we use to do that. Minus the sensitive stuff. So runtime transforms. These are my favorite because for pro number one, I love my instant gratification. I love being able to update something and being able to see right away whether it worked or not. Redeployments are not needed. The cons are a little bit extensive though. And I put an asterisk around the first one because that's going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But for the most part, with some of these runtime transforms, an app restart is required. It's not that big of a deal, especially if you're working in Azure and if you have your startup and everything working fine. But if it takes a while for your application to reconfigure or to reinitialize and to restart, that's a concern. Another downside is lack of pull requests. A lot of times whenever you're doing your runtime transforms and you're updating them, especially if you're going to be utilizing something that I'm showing in the next screen, pull request, your secrets and your configuration and your connection strings and everything are not saved inside of source control at all. So that makes it a big black box. However, if you do use the example like what I'm showing you in the next screen, you're utilizing the full power of Microsoft Azure's Keyvault. And .NET Core 2.0 and beyond natively connects to Keyvault. So it versions everything. So whenever you update something, it still keeps your old version out. It still keeps your previous, so that if you break something, you just delete your current one and you bring it back. But the thing is, it's not in source control. So it's not PR'd. It's that instant gratification, but also instant pain whenever it goes down. So that also leads into con number 3 there. So like I alluded to, this app restart is required unless you're going to be using something, unless you're using configuration builder in .NET Core, and set it to reload on, I just put that wrong. Reload on change. I'm bad in spelling sometimes. So an example of this, how many of you have actually worked in .NET Core? Yes, this was more than I was expecting. Very cool. So this is the portion. I didn't go ahead and actually put the file it's in, because depending upon what version, this could be the program.cs file, it could be the startup. .NET Core prefers program.cs. So I'm going to go ahead and endorse that, because we're going to be utilizing 2.0 technology here. So the portion that I'm actually, that's actually where I was talking about reload on chain, cool. Now we're actually talking about, damn, I don't have the actual Keyvault. If you want to email me, I can actually show you the code for that portion. But this actually does show you the reload on change. So you actually have your hierarchy here of your overrides. These aren't really transforms per se, because these are overrides, because you have your initial, hey, here's my app settings file that has this set. Okay, next, and you can actually adjust these accordingly. This is just the order of operations in which I utilize. Next, you have your environment, your environmental app settings, which is app settings dot insert environment here dot app settings dot JSON. Next, what I have is my secrets. If you want to utilize the secrets file, yes, unfortunately, that does require another file being pulled in or saved out in source control with the application, which I never endorse. You have this portion, and then you also, at the very end of it, you have your actual environment inside of Azure. So these are your app settings that you see inside of that awesome Azure portal. Go into your Azure portal for a web app, you go down to app settings, and now you see that awesome portion where you can say, hey, I want to go ahead and rename this, I want to have this key with this value here. If you utilize that, I'm going to go ahead and refer back to the same exact issues whenever I was talking about earlier, where instant gratification, not in source control. So it's an instant gratification of, I'm changing this now, I'm going to toss an app restart, and then be very, very careful. Monitor it, make sure it doesn't go down, make sure that you're not getting exceptions, that you're not getting errors, that kind of thing. But this is the portion that I actually wanted to allude to. And this portion I think I put on mine, reload on change. So I obviously did not test this application before I put it on there for you. So for the runtime transform tools, some of the tool chains that you would utilize is something like the Azure Keyvault. Like I kind of alluded to, it's amazingly powerful, it's awesome. It does come with a little bit of pain, because now you're actually dealing with your Azure Active Directory. And now you're dealing with actually configuring that, and if you're going to be utilizing this for your entire stack, there's going to be some work that's involved there. Configuration manager. Some companies or some teams actually set up their own configuration manager where they are reading from a third party in order to go and grab all their information. To go ahead and they'll have like a hash connection string in there, where it'll then go ahead and link back to their configuration manager where it actually has it stored. Same type of issue there, is that now your updates are not in source control, but it's amazingly powerful. My personal favorite, and these are not exactly configuration transforms, but they can potentially be utilized for them, and these are your feature toggles. And I put that in there because they are amazingly powerful, and they can allow you to go ahead and switch on and off functionality and be able to utilize things from your configurations, from your app settings, and be able to switch off between new connection strings and old connection strings whenever you want. There are a couple of third-party that have already been developed for you, and some of them come with subscription costs. Launch Darkly, Feature Switcher. And I have known a lot of teams actually create their own type of feature toggling system. I can't really advise, there's pros and cons to each of those. With homegrown, you can go ahead and build your own functionality into it, make it look however you want, make it look all pretty, put your company standard on it, that kind of thing. With Launch Darkly and Feature Switcher, you do actually have your third-party APIs that you can go ahead and do. You have no development cost. But that customization, you kind of lose that. And with that, I guess I'm actually done. This actually went faster than I thought it would.
So you are a master in Galm.
Yes, I am a master in Galm. Yes. I like my Galm. So, Mastering ALM, it's a company that me and another individual actually have that helps walk people through this. Because trying to set up the CI is trying to set up your deployment chain. It can be very complex. It can be very daunting. It can be a headache. It can be a pain. But at the end, it is a huge reward. I mean, it's amazingly powerful. And the website that we have is www.masteringalm.com. So, questions, folks? I know I'm missing a slide.
Rolling back a slide. That Launch Darkly and Feature Switcher?
Yes.
Those are third-party feature toggle solutions?
Yes. I know. Don't go there.
They can have a pretty good cost at times.
Did you piss off the St.Pete.net gods?
What?
Did you piss off the St.Pete.net gods?
No, I work with him.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I work with him, and we're one of the companies that actually decided to make our own custom.
That was great
feature
talking. But if you're playing pure Azure stack, it seems like Keyvault and that whole thread in there, it's a pretty clean run to use Keyvault to switch things in and out.
Yes.
Based on what I just learned.
Yes, very much so. And it's something that myself and
Jim.
can I toss you out there? Okay, this is my coworker Hudson. He's also the co-founder of Mastering ALM.
What's going on, guys?
He's critiquing me.
St. Pete, we can have a bum take.
In my neighborhood, I don't know. My neighborhood's kind of questionable. I'm pretty sure that I can go and find someone for $5. But the chances of success are much lower, and I don't have the unit tests in place to find out whether it's actually going to work beforehand or not.
Do you do a runtime configuration switch between gun and club or knife?
I wish. No, we haven't advanced to that runtime configuration for that.
Like on a pure Azure play, it's really like Keyvault back to MSDEPLOY to FTP push go.
What about for database connection strings? Something like using deployment slots in Azure and managing which one you're really pointing to at any particular time? How do you...
Using deployment slots, you can actually use slot settings for those. Those are something to be very, very cautious about. What?
Softball.
So, with the deployment slots, you can set them up manually. I would prefer in an automated fashion. And this is, if you want to talk more about exactly how to implement that, I'm more than happy to go ahead and show you some examples of how we do that. But the gotcha there is that to be very aware of what those slot settings are, because the next time you swap the slots, now your value is going to be out there again. So just something to keep in mind. But yes, you can definitely do that. That's actually using the slot settings, which is the app settings portion that I was talking about before. Only you can actually do that just on a slot level. Definitely an option. Definitely doable. If you have multiple teams possibly touching the same code, I would be very cautious about that portion because they could go ahead and tell whoever to go ahead and update their secrets files and thinking, hey, I want to go ahead and update this connection string. Awesome. Let's deploy it out. Sweet. We're getting some database failures. Why? I have my new connection string out there. It's because of that. It's because of that environmental override measure. So just amazingly powerful, but something to with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing.
Cool. Good answer. Have you done anything with Windows 10 apps and signing?
I have
apps?
not yet. I have not done anything with Windows apps. I've done a little bit with this is where I'm going to actually have to hit myself. I've done a lot of work with iOS and with Android, but not a lot with Windows, and I'm going to kick myself later for actually saying that.
So how about with so for iOS, you got a certificate store and all that stuff going, or even in Android, if you're doing it right, or if you're going the right route, you'd have your key store file and that stuff. But what if you wanted to have a certificate that's for dev and then a certificate for production? And the timing of that. It's
called an enterprise cert. iOS does offer enterprise certs. And the cool thing is that you don't actually have to put the UDID into those. And it's really, really awesome. It's an untrusted, but the thing is that you can go ahead and install it without actually getting approved from
up to 200 users, is that right?
Very good, yes.
It's
now
use the runtime configuration to switch out your certs.
That's kind of hit or miss right there. There are a lot of third parties that do a lot of that stuff for you. One that's actually worked, that's now pretty is Buddy Builder, if memory serves. It actually allows you to deploy your test code out, and it will actually handle that cert changing for you whenever you go from test to submission out to iOS for approval.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like App Center. Could you somehow use this with App Center with a key store to switch out? All right, look, I'm pushing a beta build out. I want to have this one cert, but now I'm going into a production test release. I want to have a different cert, that kind of thing.
That's a good thought. It's logically yes. Logically yes.
Alcohol related.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say logically yes, but I haven't done that in the past.
Great,
so
email. This is gonna be fun.
That's cool. Yeah. I love being bugged by questions like these.
Yeah, so I had a client who was wanting their dev team was offshore. They wanted them to have their own cert, be able to build for them to deploy internal. And then they wanted for their production deployments and things that went out to the App Store, they want to have a separate signing and all that. So they were having some challenges with how to manage that. It was a nice little.
And it really is. I mean, that portion with, especially with iOS, is amazingly powerful. Just be very careful with it, because I've made this mistake before. I can't blame this on anybody else. I've made this mistake before, where I've actually used that enterprise cert across multiple applications. And they're only good for a set number of time. If memory serves, they're good for a year. And once it goes kaput, you have to keep track of all applications that are using it, so that whenever you pull in your new cert, you can properly link it up. Because if you don't, all of those test applications that were once relying on it that don't get properly linked up, they now don't even run. Even if they're already pre-installed on an application or installed onto an iOS device, they'll error out and they won't run. Fun stuff, yes. Yes, sir.
How come you haven't ever tweeted off mastering ALM?
Because it's brand new. Because we just started this not too long ago.
Like today?
More like about 2 or 3 months ago.
You have one follower. Congrats on number 2. All right, these 2.
I might be number 1.
Cool.
What else?
Really good talk.
No other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you coming out. Like I said, if you have any questions on this kind of stuff, feel free to bug me whenever you want.